feature that some people hate the most about the Milwaukee M12 die grinder? We'll talk about it in just a moment. I'm Tim Johnson, you're watching Shop Tool Reviews. Several months ago, we reviewed the 2485 Milwaukee M12 right angle die grinder. So it's a cordless die grinder, has 4 speeds on it, works really well, especially on smaller jobs. We've detailed that on the review as well as other social media videos that we've done. But why do some people hate a certain feature on this tool? I think it's because they're not educated on it, as well as we haven't done a good job of talking about it. And it has to do with the collet, or the actual mechanism that holds in the bits. Most of the time, when you're taking out a bit or taking out a tool out of your die grinder, you loosen this collet nut and you slide it out, or maybe you bump it in. Once you got it loose, you bump it in and then it slides right out. That's not how it works on the M12. Let's actually go over to the workbench. We'll actually take this apart. We'll talk about it and actually see what this tool does. See why people are a little uneducated about it. But let me be clear, I was uneducated on this. Several times I had some choice words to say, and I had to use a vise and everything else, and then realized how crazy I was when I realized how it actually works, because it's called a self-releasing collet. So it's a really neat feature, but you got to know how it works. So as we mentioned, this is the Milwaukee M12 2485, and it's their 90-degree cordless die grinder. Runs on their 12-volt platform. And one of the things that is misunderstood about this tool is how to get the bits out of the tool. I released a video the other day and on social media, and people started saying right away, "Oh, well, do you have trouble with bits sticking in there?" And I said, "No, I really don't." And so I started asking questions, and several actually spoke up, said, "Yeah, they hang up in there, and you got to hit them with a wrench, you got to hit them with a hammer, you got to put it in the vise and all this stuff." And I thought, you know what, I think I know where they're headed with this, because I remember getting this tool having the same issue. So let me show you, and we'll take this. And so you see the tools in here, the bits in there really good. And so we got to break this free. And so once we got it broke free, now that nut is free to spin. So you can see I can easily turn the collet nut with my fingertips. However, that tool is still in there, and I don't mean kind of in there, it's in there. So somebody said if you'll just wrap that nut, which you see I just did, then it'll actually break that free. But as you can see, it is still in there. I mean, I cannot pull that out. So here's what this is. This is a self-releasing collet. So once I've got it broke free, you see I can spin it several times, and then it gets tight again. So now once I break that free once more, now watch there. Look at there. So it releases that. So let's take a look at this collet here. So it's a little different than your typical collet. You see, number one, it's kind of, I wouldn't say impregnated, or it's not pressed in to this tool, but it does sit in that groove there. Now you can pop this out, but you can see the groove here in the top. It's just not an inner sleeve that slides in, but once it breaks free initially, and then it'll actually use the lip of this to actually break that collet loose from the shaft, but you do have to give it a few more turns. So it doesn't just work like your typical die grinder. So here's a typical die grinder here, and you see the bit's in there really good. And then once I break this free like that, it's now good to go. So a little bit different than that, and then I'll show you the actual collet here as well. So you see this collet looks quite a bit different than this collet here that Milwaukee's using. So it's not a good or bad per se, other than this is a quick release, or a self-releasing. So once you do turn it to that point, it is going to automatically release that shaft, where these sometimes can get stuck on there. And as you can see, since there is no retainage there, it just kind of sits in that recess there. As this backs off, it's just basically backing off, and this can stay in there with that on the shaft, which I'm sure we've all had that a time or two, where this is still stuck on there, the nut's still stuck on there, and you got to beat it off or something like that, and then you got to drive the collet off of it. So maybe it spins a little bit and kind of welds itself to the shaft. So we've probably all been in those scenarios before. But again, the new one that Milwaukee is using is that self-release. Again, let me pop, and by the way, if this does come out, make sure you pop this back in there before you put the tool or the bit into the end of the collet, or you're going to have a pain there as well. So again, just show you one more time how this works. And by the way, you don't have to tighten it twice. You know, it's still the same way to tighten it. Tighten it up. It's in there good. Again, break it free. It's still going to hold. Get it to that second section. Break it free again. And now you're good to go. So, I don't know. If you want to call that a pain, maybe it is. But it's the idea is to keep it from sticking in there and keep you to having to get a second process to release that. We see a lot of these have gone this way in the woodworking world, router world, things like that. But anyway, that hopefully should answer some questions for people and maybe help keeping you from hating a tool. So really simple feature to actually back off that collet and release that tool. And you see how easy it is once you do. It doesn't take a little more turns, of maybe a little more time, maybe a few seconds, but I think once you get used to it, it's just kind of muscle memory at that point. But again, I get the point because I've been in plenty of scenarios where I have had to use hammers, wrenches, other tools to release a bit out of a typical, air die grinder or something like that after you've used it for a long time. But anyway, just wanted to make a quick video, show you how it actually works on the M12 die grinder, and show you that it's nothing really messed up there. It's just how it's supposed to work, how that new collet design is supposed to work. And this has actually been used with woodworkers on routers and things like that for several years now. So we're seeing that kind of progress into more automotive sector or metalworking tools, that sort of thing. Make sure you check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you like this video. Also, that bell notification, it'll let you know when new videos are available. Have a great day. Go out and do something nice for someone.